Hey, gang, welcome to, I guess we're going to call this the Fatal Herocast Episode 1. My name's Jason Evangelo. I'm here on a Sunday morning with Kyle Gatto, Daniel Moran, and Levi Newman. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're just going to jump right into this. Kyle, why don't you tell everybody why we're here? It's Sunday morning. I'm having coffee. Sorry.
We were having a vigorous discussion about whether or not Destiny can have the term MMO, massively multiplayer online, applied to it. And I disagree with the fact that Bungie is refusing to call it an MMO when it is clearly an MMO.
And I disagree with the fact that it is an MMO, but I don't know what to call it.
Well, it's Bungie. Bungie have obviously created a game that encompasses many things. It's a shooter. It's an RPG. It's a multiplayer game. But
that's true.
I think the term massively multiplayer online can be applied to it. It's got a hub world, a lot of people online. You can interact with people at any given time, join random parties.
Okay, let me back us up a little bit. I think, and let's be kind of honest about this. I think the reason that we are here trying to figure this out is that there's been a lot of discussion about actual scores being slapped on Destiny this week, or maybe when you're hearing this last week, a few days after release. Scores being slapped on the game before the full intended launch content can be experienced, e.g. raids and in-game stuff, right?
Yes.
And so because of this happening, we're sort of trying to figure out, well, is Bungie not communicating this properly to consumers and the press? What kind of game is it? Because if it really is an MMO, I mean, you see games like WildStar not being reviewed until a month after they get released, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got scores 2 or 3 days after Destiny before the raids even start, which is really, in my opinion, like I hit level 20 a few days ago, and I feel like I'm just getting warmed up with the game. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of the context. That's kind of why we're here talking about this.
Well, I think one of the most important things about Destiny is that Bungie have created it to be a persistent, progressive game. And that's really like the big thing about it. I think it's fantastic, and it's meant to be played over a long period of time.
But, I mean, can't you say the same thing about Call of Duty or Halo or Diablo 3?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, generally, when we see games come into production, they're not meant to be played just once. And if they are, then people are wasting their time, I think.
True. I guess what I'm looking for is what distinguishes this game, what separates it from being just a multiplayer shooter.
Well, when we talk about a multiplayer, though, say Call of Duty, you're usually connecting into a single room or battle or
server.
Map.
Like, yeah, I gotcha.
Where you're fighting maybe up to 16 people. But I gave the example we were talking about earlier. I'm joining my second mission of Destiny by myself. I'm in Russia going on my mission to find my warp drive, and yet I see other characters in my map. I can attack the same NPCs or that they are.
True.
That to me qualifies as MMO.
Okay.
I think the problem right now is accessibility. I think I think it's on this precipice, right, of playability in terms of being an MMO. Yeah, the people are there, but it's not easy to interact with them.
It's not.
It's not.
I was actually talking to somebody about how Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast 14 years ago had a better system for communicating with strangers. Like, there was no language barrier. It was just a bunch of symbols and things like that you could throw out in the lobbies to get people to join you or trade with you or whatever. And, when I think about an MMO, I think about just being able to walk up to somebody and start chatting with them or, join them. And I think to that point you're correct. That it's kind of like we're a spectator into this MMO world, but we're playing in a single-player and co-op shooter. Does that make sense?
It does.
And maybe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
And maybe this is just some hybrid version where we're seeing elements coming
That's
in.
That's why it's so damn hard to define. Gosh.
I will say that every time I'm out in the world. So yesterday, I played pretty much all day yesterday. I just want to put that out there. I did get to level 21.
Oh my God, you did play all day. Wow.
Yeah, because I started at like 14. So don't judge, but it happens. But I played with my son all day. He's 11. I played with my brother all day. And we had a blast. We had an absolute blast. We did missions and PvP, and we did the whole gamut. We did it all. And every time we would see people out in the wild, especially when we were running like level 22 strike missions or some other things, like we would see people out there, it always got me excited. We got a little bit, we just got excited because we're like, there's people out there doing the same thing, enjoying the same thing. How do we play with them? How do we like, hey, let's go blow something up? But there's not an easy way to do that.
Aside from public events. And
Right.
let me put this out there. I am level 20, well, I'm level 20, I guess level 24 light. Is that how we're kind of saying that?
Well,
Level
I mean,
of
I think it's
24?
kind of implied.
Level 24. So, probably 35 to 40 hours of gameplay so far, and I've had 2 public events.
And I wonder if the raids are going to blur those lines even more, because when I think of raids, I was, for example, EverQuest, I'm used to pickup raids, where I could just, like we talked about a little bit ago, go find complete strangers. Hey, do you want to go on a raid? Yeah, let's go. And off you go.
Right.
How do you guys feel about Bungie's decision to not have that? Like, to force people essentially to, to have 5 friends to group up with?
Well, I think
At
that's
the same
disappointing.
time.
Some people don't have 5 friends.
That's something that a lot of people are telling me. Like, hey, you're in a lucky position because you're known on the internet and you have followers and groups and websites and blah blah blah. Well, I don't have like 5 friends who have the game on PS4 who can all play at the same time.
Yeah, I was mostly joking, but it is hard to get people to play. Just recently, we're all older, we're all busy.
Yeah.
I you know what I think I really equate it to, and this sounds like a cheap plug, but it's really not. I attribute it to what Fatal Hero is. Destiny went back to the idea that people will naturally band together, form communities, and do it together, right? That's what the basis of Fatal Hero is. We can band together and do it as a community. I think they went that direction with Destiny, but people weren't ready, or people didn't understand what it meant.
Or they didn't.
That philosophy sounds an awful lot like an MMO.
Yeah.
Damn you,
I mean,
Kyle.
people just
Damn
don't play
you.
it that way.
Okay, all right, I want to say something to Levi's point, and then I want to go off on a tangent real quick. Levi, to your point, I'm very disappointed that there's no couch co-op. I just want to say that. I just wanted to get that out in the open. There's no excuse for it because of the legacy of Halo, as well as the horsepower that's in these systems. There's no reason. Here's why maybe I'm a little bit reticent to call it an MMO, because I've tried Guild Wars 2, I've tried WildStar, I've tried WoW, I've tried 5 or 6 other MMOs with like this desperate longing to actually enjoy them, and I can't. I get bored out of my mind. And so the fact that I'm so addicted to this game kind of makes my brain go, well, it must not be an MMO then. Does that make sense? I mean, and it's not as grindy. So I think Daniel's right. It's like this weird hybrid that we don't really know how to define right now. It's like a little Borderlands-y, but it's also a little, Phantasy Star Online with the hub and, the tower. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's easy to just lump it into the hybrid thing. But I think not calling it an MMO, even in part, is a disservice. Because if you want to get like technical, we can call it an MMO FPS RPG, and that's a mouthful. That's a fucking mouthful. But
fine,
that's what it is.
Slap it on
that's
there.
what it is. It's a massively multiplayer, online, first-person shooter role-playing game.
Okay, so if we agree that
That's a long title, by the way.
if we
It is a long
agree-
title,
if
but
we
it's the
agree-
most accurate way to describe it, in my
That's
opinion.
true.
if we agree that Destiny is an MMO, it at least has enough of an MMO to it's in the DNA. We have to treat it as such. Then
Here's what I think the problem is right now, Jason, is that we're trying to define something that is brand new. This is a brand new concept, really, that we're trying to put it in a box, and it doesn't really go in a box.
In some senses, it's not anything that we haven't seen before.
But not in this packaging, not in this kind of maybe Phantasy Star Online, right? But like after that,
Sure.
All right.
I mean,
Okay, yeah. I'll give you that.
if this game did not have the tower, what differentiates it from Borderlands? You know what I mean?
that's tough.
There's a world that players can drop in and out of, that you can play single player or multiplayer, and there's really, aside from the tower as a hub area, which by the way only supports 16 people that you can barely interact with. And I'm not trying to be negative, but that's kind of the facts of it.
That's true.
What
So
differentiates it? Is it
I
more of the loot system and like the legendary loot and the, you know, the weird leveling system, like when you get past 20? Is it just, what is it?
Well, I mean, it still has MMO qualities. I'm sorry, you should go ahead. Go ahead.
The other thing I was looking at while we've been talking is, I think they're trying to encourage people to go on to Bungie's website and communicate not only through in-game, but on the various forums and communication methods they've set up on the website. And maybe that's how they're trying to encourage people to arrange pickup groups or other fire teams like that.
Have you seen them actually communicating that to their players, like, you know, via Twitter or via Facebook?
No, and that's one
Okay.
thing that I wonder if maybe Bungie's still trying to figure out the best way to get people together. And I think that it might change down the road too.
Oh, I think it definitely will change.
Why don't we just do that?
What if?
Why don't we just have a little hub, a little
What if they're
Destiny
not?
hub?
What
Why
if
don't
they're
we
not
just-
saying anything on purpose, and they're just like, "All right, kids, figure it out."
Or there's that.
No,
I mean,
that's cruel.
no, there is kind of that, but I also think maybe that, you know, when you're married to a game you're developing for 4 or 5 years, let's just say 3 to 4 years, it's hard to step back because you're so damn intimate with it and so familiar with every little aspect of its mechanics and stuff that maybe it's hard to step back and go, I bet the general public doesn't quite get this the same way we get this.
You know, it doesn't even need to be developing 3 or 4 years or a game. I can tell you from personal experience that's very true.
Yeah. Huh. So let me ask you guys this, as critics, when would you feel comfortable, if ever, slapping a final review? Not even a scored review, just slapping a final review on this game.
When Bungie stopped putting out content.
I don't think it's like a
Paid
like-
content
No,
or
I'm-
free content?
Somebody said it
honest
earlier.
question.
I think. Okay. Paid content or free content? Both.
Both?
Both. Yeah, I think so. Because if in any way the paid content is kind of married to the main game, then I think it deserves to be included in the main game.
So should we not review any game until the DLC timeline
Well,
has elapsed, like
Not
Assassin's
necessarily. I mean,
Creed
you
or...
think of Call of Duty, right? Like, I don't care how many DLCs.
that DLC
Same
doesn't
game.
count. That's just multiplayer.
It's
That's
the
just
same game for like
yeah,
the
that's
last
just
10
that's
years.
just maps and
I think what
guns, yeah.
Kyle's saying is like you know, DLC that is connected to the lore and the story of Destiny, right? Because there's not much. Right?
Yeah, but
Maybe.
I would.
I don't know. I don't know what's planned for DLC for this game.
Well, they did already mention 2 expansion packs,
But those
But-
are free.
Are they?
but it comes down.
I think so.
No, they're not.
No,
they're
they're
not.
not. They're not.
Pardon me.
But I think it comes down to closer to what Jason mentioned. When things for the original game get unlocked, everything including the raids, and they say, okay, that's it, and we're getting close to releasing, we're now going to start working on the expansion packs. I think it's good at that point to say, this is what we consider the game, because another thing about expansion packs, we're used to just new maps on other games, but what if it actually fundamentally changes the game?
Like
But-
an MMO with an expansion.
Right.
I'll say it again. Damn you, Kyle.
I will say, so I beat the game yesterday, which I thought was.
You can't beat this game.
Well, you know, hang on. You know what I'm saying? I finished the campaign as it stands, right?
All right, you're ahead
And so
of me.
I was a little disappointed that it was just so short.
Yeah.
And so my son, who is amazing at PvP, by the way. The kid averages like 25 kills a game. That's sidebar.
Goodness.
Yeah, he's absurd, and he's always on my team. So I'm like, yeah, look at that, I'm winning. So he had not played any of the campaign. He's level 22, had not played any of it. I did the final Mars mission yesterday, and he got credit for beating the campaign by doing just the one thing.
Wow.
Doing just the last mission, and I was like, what?
When you say credit, like, what did he get exactly?
Well,
Just the XP
whatever, like
or
the little trophy,
a
or
little trophy?
he got like the awards and like, yeah, I don't know, something like that. Like whatever came with the end, he got it. He got the same thing that we did when we finished it. And I was like, That's kind of how I felt about it. I was like, ugh. But at the same time, so what it makes me think of, the way they ended it is, do you know how, and I know Bungie didn't do it, it's 343, but this last Halo, how they kept putting those strike missions up every so often, and there was like
Spartan Ops, yeah, man, those were great.
I
and
feel like that's what it's going to turn into. Is like
those already have more story than Destiny has in its entirety.
I know.
I feel like.
But what I'm saying is, like, that's what it's going to have to turn into, is these chapters.
I would absolutely welcome that, especially if they're free.
I've
got no problem with like the gameplay. I mean, the gameplay is rock solid. It's just a blast. But in terms of defining it, I guess we all stand on. Kyle, why don't you tell us your title for it again?
Our MMO FPS RPG.
So Destiny is an MMO RPS. Screw it.
FPS.
So
FPS,
why don't you guys
multiplayer online first-person shooter role-playing game?
So guys and gals, if you're listening, why don't you let us know what you think Destiny is after you've played it for a while, and you probably have by now, because I think like 10 million people are playing it. Maybe. Do we have numbers on that? Not yet.
We just know 500 million
shipped
24 in 24 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
A gazillion.
I don't want to do the math on that.
Gazillion point two.
All right, congratulations on your gazillion sales, Bungie and Activision.
But let us know, seriously, let us know what you think Destiny is. You can tweet to us at Fatal Heroes. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Fatal Hero. And we'll be back soon, I think, having a much longer, maybe angrier conversation about Destiny, the game itself. So on behalf of Levi and Dan and Kyle, thanks for joining us. This has been Fatal Herocast, episode number 1. See you guys.